What's up, guys? My name's
Hey,
Mike. Most of you know me. We got Josh and Tom with us, and what we're doing here is the Druzhinacast. It is a vision we've had for quite some time for doing some sort of LARP and roleplay focused podcast stream roundtable thing. Um, but for those of you who might not know who we are, I want to do like a little introduction thing for you know So let's say our names and talk about who we are and how we got here. And yeah, and always, guys, feel free to ask questions whenever in the chat. If we don't get to them right away, we are going to take some time towards the end of the stream to kind of just scroll back through and answer what we can, as long as
Yeah.
it's realistic. So let's start with Tom. Tell us about yourself, Tom.
Okay, I'm Tom. As far as as far as like LARP goes, I don't know what year it was, but it exceeds 10 years for sure. So what? Just want to hear about like my LARP journey?
Yeah, I mean, we all started pretty much in a very similar place.
Okay.
So people might find it repetitive, but it also will kind of lend to explain to people that we've been doing this together for a long time.
Yeah. So for me, then, like my start in LARP, I want to say was kind of like an accident because at the time, the prior to getting involved, I was in a band that I was pretty seriously active in. Like every weekend, we would spend the entire weekend. I'd go stay the night at his house, and we were involved like real heavy. So it was eating up all my time. So when that band eventually broke up, I was kind of left with this void of like, what am I going to do with my time? It was pretty devastating for me. But so I had met a friend through the local metal scene that was like, hey, why don't you come check this thing out? And I was like, okay. And I wasn't into history. I wasn't into like nerdy culture or anything to that anything. So I went, and I just remember going to my first practice, and the game was Dagger Here, which that's the game that we all started in loosely. It's like a full contact, like Boffer LARP, which is just combat centric. And I remember just laughing the whole first practice because like kids trying to hit me, and like I had never done anything full contact before. And I couldn't beat anybody, and I was just like, oh my god, like I'm not like they'd run at me, and like it's doing that for the first time, I just laughed. Um, so that replaced that thing for me. That replaced the void, or it filled the void that was there. Um, that now I've fully, and my friends know me, and you'll slowly get to know me. I just fully grabbed it. You know what I mean? Like put all my
It's
energy.
all we care about.
Yeah. Like anything, you start it, and you meet more people. They have a yearly event called Ragnarok. I remember starting right before that event, and people asked me if I wanted to go, and it was a week long event, and I was like, I'm not like this is all cool. Like I still kind of had that like I like it, but I'm kind of ashamed of it because it's so new, and like I'm used to people making fun of this. So I was like, I'm not gonna go on this long trip to Columbus and all this stuff. So anyway, so I did that for. I basically built my beginnings there for at least 10 years, and then, well, I mean, should we move to the next phase, or do you guys want to? You guys want to go?
Yeah, Josh, how about you talk for 20 minutes about yourself like a psycho? Just
I
kidding, Tom.
know.
No, go ahead, Josh.
yeah, my name is Josh. Yeah, I started LARPing a long time ago. It was actually around the same years that Tom started. Technically, my older. So let's start with my parents. So my parents, they were in theater, and so we had a ton of costumes all the time, all over our house. And so my older siblings and like myself, we started to try to just get into freaking like having fun and using all the costumes that we had. So we started our own LARP after we found out of it about like what LARP was on the internet back in like the MySpace days. This must have been like 2003, 2004. So my older sibling and I, we would just like all the time, just like get in costumes and go like run around in the woods and like hit each other with sticks. And then we found out about boffer weapons, and we got a bunch of friends to do it. but it was 2005, so that was 15 years ago. Was the first time we tried Dagger here, and so we went to this little event in the fall of 2005, and then later we went on to the first huge event, and that was crazy. Like ever since then, like the first battlefield we went on was like 700 people, and like once you experience that as a kid, like I was young, I was 14 then. Like once you experience something like that, you're just like, this is too fun not to do. So
This is how we get retroactively banned from Dagger here, is when we just started admitting that uh, we were sneaking people into events under 16.
Yep. Yeah, no, I lied about my age to get in. Yeah.
Yeah. My story isn't much different. I was a little kid, and as long as I can remember, I was obsessed with pirates and swords. More than any other sort of toy, I had a bunch of swords. I literally had a like cardboard display treasure chest from Kmart that my mom got from me because she was a manager and she would just get me shit. And I filled it with swords, so many swords. Um, and that just never stopped. Like I never grew out of playing with swords. By the time I was like 12 and 13, I was starting to figure out like, oh, like maybe there's like fencing in high school or something. And not quite fencing, but I saw some kids in the park playing with these big popsicle stick looking things. And what they were doing, they called Dagger here. But even though I started at like these kind of really dinky little, not so great Dagger here practices, the first event I ever went to was Belagarth. And Belagarth was an offshoot of Dagger here, but virtually the same game, using the same equipment and super, super similar rules. You could probably accidentally show up to a Belagarth event and think you're playing Dagger here, and nothing would seem different to you, and nobody would tell you otherwise. But through Dagger here, I kind of discovered that I love playing pretend still so much, and that wasn't something I was ever going to grow out of. And even though those games never facilitated anything like that, I became obsessed with like, well, even though it doesn't matter here, I have my character, I have my story, and I'm in the mindset that I'm immersed into something when I'm here. And even though Ragnarok, which is the big event that we've all been to several times and had a lot of cool memories at, even though at its core it is just a campground in Pennsylvania filled with a bunch of modern tents and a bunch of very modern people. There would still be what I like to call the magic moments where I would be like, it's real and I feel real. But since Dagger here, which I don't want to say we like grew out of it, because if there is an event happening close enough to me, I've still got gear. I'll go whack people with boffer swords.
Right.
But we just wanted more out of it. And Tom and I, as of 2 years ago, started going to Beaker Lane. Obviously, this year we couldn't go because of the pandemic, but that became kind of our main yearly thing that we do. And I kind of want to be transparent and say that while Beaker is like such a massive step above Dag and Bell as far as like being a LARP, I still feel like we haven't super experienced like actual like character driven LARPing. We've shown up and been in our stuff and we've done things and we've fought and we've interacted with people, but we've still yet to ever really dive into like a very heavy, super, super duper, like in character all the time LARP. But we strive for that. Like we all really want something like that.
Yeah, like an actual like role play in character, right? But I do think that Beaker is a good transition stage
Absolutely.
to that, or there's definitely opportunities there to do that.
Yeah, we just have to try a little harder to find them. We probably have to learn French.
Yeah.
But like the European style stuff like Conquest of Mythodia and Drachenfest, Epic Empires, like all these, you see these videos of people who it seems like they just never turn it off. Like they're just always on and they're always in character and everybody always knows what they're doing. That doesn't exist out here. So it's like, it's hard for us to be like, oh, like, let's just show up to one of these. Because really what we'd have to do is figure out a way to fly ourselves out to Germany or wherever else it's happening.
Which is literally impossible now.
Right. So
Yep.
that's why we're definitely trying to It's kind of like one of the core things of the reason we're doing this is that we want people to start talking with us about it, because we go to Beakling every year, and there's hundreds of people from the States. So it's like, why are we all traveling so far when we could make something happen here? There are small LARPs here, and there's even things like Nero, but so many of the smaller LARPs in America, and you might hear a lot of people at events talk about like their home games, and that's what they mean is like these small LARPs of like 40 to 50, 60 people that have an event once a month or something. It seems to be one of two things where either it's like a very pen and paper character sheet, like you're playing D&D while on a hike pretty much, and your character has stats, and like there's just the play goes so much beyond what you can physically do with a weapon or as a character. And on the other end, it seems to be what we've already experienced so much of, which is the boffer sports, which are essentially at its core, they're a sport. You could dress up and be an orc or something if you want, but it won't do anything to the game. The game is literally just fighting to lose or win. And the people that get the most out of those games are definitely the people that just accept and treat it like a sport, in my opinion. We've definitely made our own fun in it. There's been events where I've had at least 7 or 8 people in on it with me doing some kind of role play thing we've made up, and we had our own fun. And it was good for me, and it's a memory I'll always have. But I know to the other 200 or 300 people at the event, it essentially didn't happen. So that's pretty much been our experience thus far. I think altogether is that we've kind of existed inside of a LARP that we don't entirely fit in because of what we want out of it, but we've always made our own fun. Um, and I think that's why it's evolved into like maybe we should just make LARP happen here because we've always been about making our own
Yeah,
fun.
and I think not to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I think to segue into that, I think another reason why we're doing this is me personally, one is to increase community activity and actually be involved in it. But you had mentioned even with Bicolene, like all these American or English speaking players go, but I still don't really know any of them. You know what I mean? Like we know some people, but I think the power of a network to try to get to know people, and in this case, give people an opportunity to know us beyond following our personal accounts on social media or being a part of like text discussions and groups. I mean, face-to-face stuff definitely helps.
Yeah.
So I think that's another driving force reason. I'm seeing some people pop up in the chat here.
Yeah, Rob doesn't know what a fire hydrant is.
What?
There's like probably like a captcha thing that's like identify the fire hydrants. He probably sees like a bridge or something. He's like, oh, it could be.
What's up to everybody? How you guys doing? Anybody have any questions about the channel, or if you're coming in late? We kind of did like a little intro on ourselves. Also, no obligation.
Yeah,
and it's
away.
like most people probably know us too, so it's like
True.
What I would like to from people who engage with us is that I already see people too that are in the chat that are people that I thought of like we could have them as a guest on the show at some point.
Absolutely.
Because it's all there's so many people that we've just been like Tom said, like our interaction with people and other LARPers that we like really appreciate and want to connect with has been kind of superficial in that it's pretty much just like liking each other's stuff on social media. And I would like to take more strides to do stuff in the way that like Petco and Liv are, where they're getting together and doing cool photo shoots. I just want to do more creative stuff in general, whether or not it's with people. But I need more engagement to happen out here with all the people here, because I feel like there's enough people out here that want like real ass LARP happening. And the only way that we're going to make it happen is if we all really get together and start tossing ideas back and forth and start working together to build something.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't know if we all said it, but we're all from the Midwest right now. We've moved places, but we're all in the Midwest right now, and a lot of our people who have been part of our groups like intimately are also here now too. So we want to get stuff started. I think like the Midwest is a good place to do things, especially LARPs, because I mean, every part of the U.S. pretty much has the same numbers that would be involved. But yeah, I don't know what we want to do, but before that next segment, Mike, that's on there that we haven't touched on yet. Why Druzhina? Why are 3 Midwest white males into Slavic stuff? How do we get there?
Well, first let's maybe someone wants to take the reins and describe what Druzhina is. We didn't really like what
you
it
might
means.
be the best for that.
Oh boy!
Yeah, you do that.
We all dork out about this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom takes it to a very nurturing level.
Well, I think the reason why we chose Druzhina is obviously you can see with the background here. I mean, if you're not familiar, we're into like Cossacks. I'm really into like Polish culture. Really anything surrounding that region of the steppes. Usually around like 16th century, 15th century, 17th century in there. Druzhina is basically, and I'm totally going to butcher myself because I'm probably not totally accurate, but it's a term used for basically a group that would fight with a lord, basically like saying like this is like these are my dudes, like these are my people that follow me, that believe in me, like they're my friends, warriors, etc. So we chose that word just to centralize or encapsulate basically the vibe of what we like and the fact that we're all friends. Were you gonna say something, Mike?
No, I moved the mic away so I could burp.
So that's basically we really like that stuff. I mean, if you guys know us, you know we have friends that have inspired us, and that's kind of what our kits look like. That's kind of what our personas look like.
Yeah,
we're actually getting some questions in the chat to save myself here. Let's see here. We got, who's the first one? I think we got Livy saying, "What do you think is lacking in LARP content creation, and how could you help to bridge that gap?" Livy, do you want to evaluate? Do you mean just generally, or do you mean like what we're doing here, or do you mean like even people that create LARPs?
I think I get what she's getting at, because I kind of struggle to find a lot of stuff. Like, it's like, remember before we went to Bico and we were trying so hard to just find videos of anything happening besides fighting, and even like the influencer made videos of like, here's what I did at Bico Lane. It's like nobody ever shows any like role playing happening, or like we the small amount of RP we experienced at Beacling, we like accidentally ran into.
Yeah.
What I think a lot, and a reason why I think a lot of stuff doesn't happen here in the States, is because it's so hard to like find a website for the game that you want to play, and then they like find some sort of example even, or some kind of demonstration on like, here's what play looks like. I think a lot of people don't know how to play pretend with each other.
Right.
And obviously, like, people like Josh that have a theater background, and I would say that pro wrestling gives me an insight into just playing a character for a crowd, but it's backwards for me. I started LARPing, and LARPing gave me the confidence to be like, I could do pro wrestling. I know how to pretend to be a guy, and that's all it is. So it's like, I think a lot of people have no idea what they're getting into. Just because, especially because to them too, is that all LARP is in the States here is smacking each other with popsicle sticks.
Yeah, it's very competitive. It's a very competitive nature.
So it's a lot of people can't think beyond like winning and losing, and think more about like, well, let's tell a story, like or just even experience something. Because even if you know where it's going and you have it planned out or rehearsed, it's like, it's still going to give you a cool feeling. And especially if you just see somebody who didn't know what was coming enjoy it in a way, or react to it in a way, like that's what I'm looking for in all of this.
I really think, and this is my personal opinion, but like, to look at the broad landscape of American LARP, or even like American culture, I think the reason why American LARP is what it is because America as a culture, we're very sport oriented. You know what I mean? Like an easy game, it's physical, you win, you lose. like we're very focused on that. I also think because you see a lot of historical based LARPs in Europe, medieval culture isn't a part of our history here. And thirdly, I think if you said to someone that's one not really into fantasy, not really into history, whatever, and you say, "Here's a stick, you can hit somebody with it," or without any training, you can try to pretend that you're someone and feel really awkward. I think people would usually be like, "Well, I know physical stuff, I know sports. I don't really want to be put on the spot to role play, and I've never really even had anybody coach me through role play. So let's just do that." And I think I don't know if that's harsh, but that's kind of why I think it's molded into that. And
Yeah.
Sorry, and this is not even a part of your question. I
I mean,
think
that's what this is all about. We're going to be
yeah,
going off on tangents all the time.
but
So, I mean,
to,
like, bear with us. Because
yeah,
we're
but
definitely amateurs.
to answer Livy's question, or to close Livy's question, unless someone else wants to add something, is for as far as content creation goes, I think there probably is stuff out there. Whether or not it's getting exposure or not, I don't know, and I definitely would like to find it or support it. But as what Mike said, I think the stuff that we've seen, while it's good, I would just like to see more of an active, candid discussion happening regularly, instead of like, here's this one video you can watch, and if there's questions that weren't answered, that's it. And you know what I mean? I just want to create more of a community and more discussion. I think that's missing, in my opinion.
What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, it's definitely about community and like friends, but um, I think like right now in like real life, there's a lot of people that are just so weary, and it's not just been like a current thing with like COVID or things that are happening in the political climate. It's like for a long time, people in this Western world are definitely like, maybe the whole world are weary of like the hardships of life. And a lot of us have some kind of draw to the past or to fantasy. And that's something that like is healthy to feel. So like if you have a connection to it, and like we can go on and on about why we ended up becoming Slavs and stuff, or like Baltic or other kind of things that we like in history. It's just that like if you have a connection to something and you want to explore it with others, like why not give it a shot in a thing like in an environment in a game where you can really put a lot of effort into it and get a lot out of it. And that's nothing like gaming of all kinds does it in certain depths, but live action role play for me and my experience like 15 years later is it's just like it could be amazing, and it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Bully makes a really good point. It's kind of like what I was saying, where it's like you have two avenues with American LARP right now. It's you do your pen and paper, pretty much D&D with hiking, where it's like you have a character sheet, even though you're like an actual living person and you're not really like, it's not like we're sitting here talking out what we're doing. Like you can physically do stuff, or you're playing Dagger Bell and it's all sport. So he makes the point that in Canada they call them parlor LARPs, and they I guess they use buffer too, like we do. But yeah, it's just nothing super concrete exists that really does both well. Because that's the thing too, is that with our like ideal LARP, it's not like I want to give up all agency to players to win or lose based on their ability. I want all the good fighters to do good, and I want it to, I want it all to have weight. I want it all to matter. I want it all to have meaning and purpose. You know, like that's the other thing too, is that a lot of the times when we kind of have discussions with the little group of people that we're trying to develop stuff with, um, a lot of the times it comes up like, oh well, what if we don't have fighting here, or like what if there's people that don't like our style of fighting or how hard the fighting is, and my response has always been, fighting's not going to be for everybody. Fighting's never been for everybody. Fighting is a dark, dangerous, cruel, ugly thing, and it should always be a last resort. And I want a game where that's the reality of it. I want a game where we don't go to war unless we have a good reason for it. I don't want it to be like, all right, like you show up Friday, camp out, and then Saturday we do day battles, and then party all Saturday night, and then go home Sunday. Like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
It's a good time when you just want to hang out with people and get it out of your system. But I think we all and a lot of other people just want more out of it.
And if I may
And it,
say, oh, sorry.
I was just going to answer Nancy really quick. She was like asking like what LARP specifically we're talking about and if we're making our own LARP. We're kind of talking LARP in general and throwing in our experience from Dag and Bell and Beakeline. Um, but at the same time, we are trying to develop something in the States, specifically in the Midwest, um, with a bunch of different people from Michigan and Indiana, and we're trying to make something happen here. And while this is kind of just a focused stream for us to get our feelings out, and it's based on our group and it's made of our group. Um, my at least personal goal with doing this is to get people get your brain juices moving about like, oh, let's make something happen here. Like there's all these people who are so enthusiastic about LARP and they want real LARP and they're all from the Midwest of the United States, so why aren't we doing it? But that's all I got for that.
What was I gonna say?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah. So okay, that who asked?
That's Emma Tai.
Okay.
She's a dragoon from I can't remember if she's from Fort Wayne or Indianapolis, but
Yeah, and I think to give a summary too of like we did the Boffer LARPs. I think they definitely were a good intro. They got, I mean, we built skill as like fighters and like the whole like muscle memory and everything. I think we always yearn for more. And when me and Mike experienced Beakeline, it was cool to see. Uh, so if you don't know what Beakeline is, and I'm not going to go too into it, you can look it up. Maybe we could talk about it some other time, but I don't want to take up a lot of time.
yeah, I mean we could do a whole episode on it if people want to hear about it.
But it basically
From our
it's a
perspective.
LARP where there's a game in the background. It's a virtual game, but when the battles happen, they happen for a reason, and the result of the battle changes what happens in the game, in the virtual game, and it's real complicated and everything. But basically, I think what we have always wanted is something like that, where the battles matter, but maybe to not that depth, and definitely the not speaking French, that kind of, and not being in Canada is definitely a barrier. But something a little bit like the light version of that, that's a little bit more accessible. And I also think that American LARPs, we see movies of, like, let's face it, you think of medieval stuff, it's a battle. You think about the battle stuff. There might be a love story or whatever, but it's like, oh, battle, battle, battle. That's what sticks out, like swords, shields. So I think that's definitely like American LARP goes for that. But I think the broader side of what we want to go to or what we have gone to, and in my opinion, it's like I want to I want to be involved in all of the things that a medieval person would have gone through. Their relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just seeing medieval stuff as battle and saying, well, I've kind of peeked at this subject. It looks like they fight a lot. That's what we're gonna do. Like, I'm interested in the clothes, in like getting together for a meal. The plots of why somebody killed
Politics,
somebody.
man.
So that's kind of like, it's more on the storytelling. We haven't lost the fighting. That's definitely a thing. But like Mike said, to actually view it as, oh man, like if someone popped me in there in real life in medieval times, I wouldn't just be like, sweet, I got a sword. Well, like, I'm gonna kill this guy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You'd still be like, oh. So it's like the fear, the joy, all the things that would happen. It's trying to put yourself in that person's shoes, and that's what gives you that suspension of disbelief. That's what gets you excited when you hear some plot is developing. Like, it's to get that side of you excited instead of just like, when do I get to bonk somebody? Which, that's for somebody. I'm not I'm not trying to dump on that. I'm just saying that's why we turn to LARP. That's why we want to talk about LARP. For
Yeah.
me,
It would be hard for us to really dump on it because if we didn't spend so much time playing games like that, we probably wouldn't be very good at fighting.
well, and we
Oh,
may never have got to here to this point.
Yeah,
yeah. Mhm.
we had to start somewhere, and I'm perfectly fine with where we started, and I'm happy with where we're going. Um, Emitai asked another good question about Gathering of the Clans, which is one of my favorite Dagger Hero events I've ever been to. It's hosted by um, Northern Steps, which is the realm in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And the first one I ever went to is my favorite weekend event ever. Um, they don't do super heavy role play, but compared to like a normal Dagger Hero event, like that was pretty cool. They did a lot of cool stuff with battles, where like I the Friday night I had my first wrestling match, and I fell on my shoulder and I screwed it up, and I told myself like, oh, I'm gonna go wrestle this match, and then I'm already like an hour that way, so I'm just gonna drive the other 2 hours after my match, and I'll be there in the middle of the night, which is fine because people will be up. But I hurt my arm and I still went anyway. So when I got there, I was at an event with no arm to swing a sword with, and at any other DAG event that would have been a huge bummer. But at Gathering of the Clans, they had this cool battle setup where there was there was like a navy situation, and like everything was simulated with like pool noodles and PVC rectangles that were simulating boats. But um, everybody got really into it, and like sometimes that's all you need. Um, and even though I was missing an arm, I was still able to swing one sword around and lead my guys, and I had a great time. And even better than that, at night they had this really cool like spin the wheel Thunderdome deal where like you two people get into fight and then they have to spin the wheel to find out how they're fighting, and we were all gambling, and I don't even know how, but I had so much money and I was just like pretending I was some rich, awesome lord, and I was off my ass drunk. And that's probably one of my favorite memories from Dagger here, not only because it was one of the best events I went to, but it was probably the first one where I was like, man, I just want all the events to be like this. Like I always want to be pretending to be a drunk rich lord. Like this,
Yeah.
like everything that was probably one of the first times I was like, whoa, magic moment. Like it's all real for a moment, like in the darkness of the woods and the soft lights of torches and stuff. And I was just like, wait a minute, I think I just realized like the dream I'm trying to live. Like I had it there for a moment.
Yeah.
But I get it back every once in a while, and that's why I always try to do it again. um,
Hmm.
Bully, I think I told you guys before that eventually, once things get a little more developed, we're gonna want to bring other cultural groups into the game that we're trying to make happen. And you guys are the first people that come into my mind when I think like, oh, we need like a Norse analog, like we need Vikings in our game. And the Oathsworn are the first people I thought of when I so. But once we still have a lot to do as far as making things concrete and getting a website up for people to look at, and social media going and stuff.
Like
But
play
once
testing,
that
all
too,
that stuff.
Yep.
because we and I mean some people know, people that are from like Midwest Dagger here that go to Olympics, they might know that my friends and I have been doing like our own secret LARP in the woods at Olympics. And some of you might have even been lucky enough to be invited back there to watch us play with forbidden latex swords. And we host our own tournaments and we do our own little role play things, and we have the orcs show up. Um, that wasn't just for fun. That was all of us play testing because we've been trying to do this for years. So some of you have already borne witness to our developments, and whatnot. But uh, I love saying forbidden swords. Uh,
Swords.
but yeah, it's getting farther than it's ever gotten before. While it still doesn't feel like a big concrete thing I can really give to people, I almost feel bad hyping people up because it's really not ready yet. But it's getting to a point where uh, we have a lot of minds that meet together and have pretty good discussions about how we want to do things. Um, but I think my main goal right now is let's get something concrete laid out. Let's get some rules and a website and some information for like factions and stuff, so people that don't know what they want to be can just kind of read through a list and be like, oh, that sounds cool. Like here's an example of a kit that would fit for that. Here's an idea of what that group's story is. Here's their motivations. And I also want it to work so that if people don't want to be part of anything, they can just show up as their own medieval man and fit in somewhere.
Yep.
Man or woman or person. But once we really have something concrete laid out, I'm planning on bringing the Oathsworn in as our Viking group, especially if they like what we have. I feel like we've had enough talks at both online and while at Beakeline, which is where the Oathsworn, for people who don't know, are a really awesome group of guys and girls that they're from the States, and they run a cool Viking group that goes to Beakeling every year. And they've kind of been our host group of sorts. They're like the people that were just already our friends when we showed up, and they've been really cool to us and always invite us to their camp to hang out. And if we're ever having trouble finding something to do at Beco, we just walk over there and they have something to drink or something to eat or something to laugh at, something to sing. Like, it's always a good time. So that's why I think about them often when I think about LARP.
Let me just pop in here real quick. I was going to say, we are talking a lot and hyping a lot about this LARP game. If that's something that you want to hear more about, we also want to pool interest into further episodes. If there's specific things that you or someone you know wants to talk about, we definitely are going to open up the possibilities of having guests. So if you want to hear more about this LARP game, we could have some of the people that are involved be on and talk more about it to kind of like put some bait out there to hype up future episodes. Or anything, any ideas, any questions. We definitely, right now we're using an email. We're going to set up social media. The email currently is thedruzhinacast@gmail.com. I should probably post that somewhere, but it's exactly how it is in our name here, and it's at Gmail. Probably someone's popping it in the chat right now. I also want to kind of skim back here and grab some other people's questions. I definitely don't want to skim over and not
yeah, I'm missing a lot, I feel.
No, that's okay. I have the thing here. Oh my goodness.
Eventually, we should probably just get a moderator that like mods our chat and throws stuff at us.
I mean, I guess that's kind of like me, but I just suck. Alita asked, "How about this COVID thing? How do you do events?" Well, the simple question or answer is we don't. There are people I've seen pop up, like Swordcraft in Australia are doing some fight practices with masks, which everybody here is a huge defender and promoter of mask use. Not to go towards that, but absolutely. And I'm definitely okay with letting this thing take its course. I'm not gonna try to get back to any LARPs or anything like that soon.
Not here.
Do we already? Okay, we already. No.
I've seen enough people that are like getting together with one other person to spar with masks on, and I think that's fine. It's like, just
I mean, you're outside.
Wash your gear and your sword covers when you get home. But it's like, it's like you're outside. I mean, Rob and Nick are buddies that we talk about LARP with a lot. They get together and sword fight all the time, and it's good to keep doing it. I need to set up my dummy. I bought a Bob dummy, one of those like punching bags that look like a person. I still need to set it up because I haven't even swung a sword in so long that the first time I do, I'm probably gonna feel real dumb. But yeah, the pandemic is definitely making it hard to do. I mean, if we were still going to events, I don't know if we'd have time to do this.
Oh yeah, that's
like
what I was saying the other night.
A big reason why we're doing this is probably because we're just fiending for interaction and just talking about it. We already do it all the time, and it got to a point where it's like, why don't we just do this as a stream so we can interact with other people? We can only fit so many people into a Discord chat.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to do a real quick shout out to we have someone in the chat that says the Valraven are currently watching. So, so the Valraven is a wonderful group that we, what would you say it is? Like a hotel? They're basically a great group that hosts us. Yeah, an inn at Beacoline. This year would have been our second year.
In a bunk at the Valraven right now.
I know. Trust me. And that's what Mike said. I mean, we're all aching. I mean, I'm sure all you feel the same way. We're all aching for some kind of something that has to do with the thing that we all love. So this is our way to try to connect with you guys and put a big Band-Aid on that ouchie of it not being here. So
yeah, it hurts.
Let's see. If anyone else has any other questions, or maybe I missed it, feel free.
Yeah, there might have been something else. I could scroll through here and take a little peek. I'm loving all the engagement. I didn't expect people to hang out that much at all.
Yeah, 16 viewers. That's pretty
fun. Awesome.
17.
Speaking of guests, too, we really got to have our good buddy Pecco on at some point.
Oh, for sure.
I really want to do a session where we kind of just have a good, long, heavy talk about authenticity and mixing authentic pieces in with fantasy kits to kind of develop it's kind of like how, look at something like Mountain Blade. None of that's real, but when you look at it, it's all very obviously and purposefully influenced by something in history. But it's also something that they just put together and it just looks like a real medieval thing.
Yeah.
And that's something that we all do, is that we all do different mixtures of Slavic stuff, whether we're wearing Rus pants with a Cossack tunic and a Hungarian hat, whether we're wearing a Polish Kontusz with Cossack pants and a Lithuanian hat. It's like the reason I like to mix it all up is because I don't want the Druzhina as like a LARP group that visits as many LARPs as we can, hopefully, whenever things go normal again. It's never going to be a single specific thing. We're never going to be like a full-on Polish representation group or a full-on Rus representation group. I want it to be mixed with Magyar and Cumans and all kinds of sweet stuff to kind of make it our own thing. I got really turned on by that idea when I first got into Mountain Blade and I discovered the Vagers. And it's like, oh, these guys are just like Mongols, Rus, and Middle Eastern guys mixed together, and I love that. And then I never got into Warhammer, but then somebody was like, oh, you should check out these what are they called?
Kislavs or something?
The Kislavs. And I was like, or Kislev, that's what it is. And I'm like, oh, sweet, they just look like Poles. That's awesome. And I was like, well, why don't we just do a LARP group that's that? Obviously there's people that are into it and it's all we care about. So I love screwing with the rest of our buddies that do 14th century Western kits, and they wear their plate and their Michelin Man gambesons. And I like sharing the memes that are superior lamellar wearer and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's actually how I feel. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's cool too. It's cool too that we happen to be genuinely into those things, but and I don't want to discount anyone that I haven't met, but it seems that there's kind of an absence of that, at least in the LARPs or the Boffer stuff we've done. So it's not only is it cool to be the group that's doing it or one of the groups that's doing it, it's to also shine a light on those cultures or the authenticness or the inspiration of things that happen in history to people that would never see it, or even to turn them on to be like, what is that? And ask questions. Yeah. And then they might be like, man, that's cool. That gives me inspiration. I mean, that's kind of what it's all about, other than having our personal fun. I'm a type of person where when my friends do something that either it's clothes or an accessory or something that I don't have that I wouldn't have thought of, not only am I like, man, I like that too, but that I'm like, man, I got to do something to one them up. And so we kind of go back and forth as this hammer and anvil of creativity to be test each other. And I mean, that's not everybody, but I mean, we're all looking to be stimulated. And
Yeah,
so
we've been doing like the competitive like look what I have stuff for
Yeah.
years. And
That's the other thing. Like, I haven't been a combative in like 5 years. And I'm surprised to say that, but that's true. Like, for a long time, like just life, and I didn't have health insurance. I was like, I'm not going to fight and hurt myself, you know?
yeah.
So I started doing a lot more crafting. Or another the great thing about LARP is like looking at what you can do besides just a battle game. And so like crafting, I set up a merchant booth for a couple of years. That was kind of fun, you know? And so like, I really want to just do more, especially with my friends, and inspire more in that sense, you know?
Do you think? I think too. Like the whole concept of a LARP or LARP in general that doesn't focus just on combat. In a weird way, it does kind of dismantle, which also is part of my like American argument for LARPs. It kind of dismantles that like macho like if you want to be relevant here, you have to fight, and it kind of
mhm.
pushes
Yeah.
all those other beautiful things out the window. And it's like, yeah, that's cool, you want to do that, but you're kind of just like a side character. Like it's really all about the battle. It's like no, there's
Yeah,
awesome
I'm
interactions,
over that.
artisans, anyone
Totally.
that wants to do anything. It's like I want to just jump in that big general pool of greatness and see people excel and see people doing what they love and enjoy because everything adds something. You know what I mean? Like everything is, I don't know, just creativity in general. I 100% support, um, and everybody should get their spotlight. I think so.
I learned a lot watching that Conquest of Mythodia stream. Um, and they enlightened me about a lot of cool concepts like playing to lift, where when you see somebody trying to convey something and role play something, um, you you react appropriately based on who you are. And if you have an opportunity in character to uh, make it real for them and interact and respond, do it. And if there's somebody that's playing some kind of nobility or royalty, it's like, oh, like regard them as my lord or your grace, and give a short bow and talk to them respectfully. If you see somebody that's trying to play some kind of street urchin peasant, like if your character's some mean dickhead, then be mean to them. If your character's like a, if you think you're a hero, you're probably dropping a coin in their cup. Um, and for all you know, that person is waiting for those people to do that so they can do something cool for that person because they showed some kind of generosity. Um, I really want to encourage that kind of stuff. I really want to encourage people to, you don't always have to be on, but when you see somebody doing it and you can tell that they're trying to convey something, they're trying to bring the world to life. It's like live in that world for a bit. And you're not always just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for other people, like we're all, that's why it's like I want this to be a community where people kind of understand each other and what we're trying to get out of it and how we can help each other get it. And I think that playing the lift concept is really really cool.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of things that they talked about that I really wish I took notes, because it was like crazy enlightening, like things I had never even talked about. And they even had some things too that like it's like, oh, we've already like thought of that, but they actually have a word for it because they're just way ahead of us in doing all this stuff. Kind of like how we kind of came up with the concept of your character will never die unless you want them to die. You have complete and total agency over your own character's death. People can mutilate you and wound you to many extent, but if you're not ready for that character to die, they don't die. They somehow get away, and people should know to role play and respond accordingly. Like if you got real screwed up in a battle that happened Friday and you still got Saturday and Sunday, you're probably not fighting the rest of the weekend, and you should probably play up that you're injured or that you need to find some sort of way to get healed and get fixed up. Um, but people that see you act that way will think like, oh, like this is a real serious thing, and they're going to want to play along with it too. Um, so when we kind of had that idea, they just shot out like, oh yeah, we have the victim rule. where you just have total control over your own death. Nobody kills you unless you're ready to die. So it's like, oh, somebody poisons you. It's kind of up to you what that poison actually did. And you have to play that out however you feel. And it's like the more you give to somebody when they're obviously trying to make something happen in role play, the more you're probably going to get out of it. Especially because you're going to start making relationships with those people. And it's like what we did at Beekling for Ayla's quest that she had, where she's probably lucky she found us because I don't know how else she was going to pull that off without four dudes with swords. But people that did that for us, whether it's that priest that we saw doing the ritual, or whether it was the orcs that were probably very surprised that there was a bunch of guys with swords there because they probably just expected one young woman to be there. Um, the next time we see those guys, if we try to do a role play thing, they're probably gonna want to engage with us, and they're probably gonna remember who we were, and they're gonna give us something cool, and we give them something cool. Um, but yeah, I really want to borrow a lot from those chats that they have. That Conquest of Myth the DLRP looks pretty close to what I want to try to accomplish out here. The more and more I talk to those guys that run it, the more I'm like, man, we're not coming up with anything new at all. Like, it's happening out there.
But it feels cool to be like in the dark cave of our neck of the woods. We also came up with this idea, and we had the same feelings, and they were confirmed that, like, oh man, someone else is doing that. You know what I mean? Like it there's a little bit of piece of pie to it that you're like, oh wow, like, not that we have to be proud of ourselves, but you know what I mean? We were led to that by our own feelings. You know, I do want to say real quick. We're talking a lot about LARP. We're talking about American stuff. I think to add on to what Mike's saying is a word not only that not a lot of people in America say, although they are now, that really sums it up is really it's consent. So in American LARP, it's to me and what I've seen, it's like everyone is player one, and it's kind of like a video game where you're just kind of worrying about yourself, and it's competitive like a game, and you're thinking like I want to win. So there's a little bit of this like domination type attitude where it's like I want to do good, I want to defeat other people, I want to win, I want to dominate. Whereas LARP, like latex weapon LARP or whatever weapons they choose to make, but more story driven LARP, it's more about I'm the director, I'm the actor, and I consent to what I do with my creative property, but so do you, so does she, so do they, so does everyone, and it's all about the consensual role play of what kind of story do we want to build together. So we all have a little piece of the pie where you have to act. You all have a little piece of pie where you get to decide creatively with where things go, and then you have that personal piece where you're like, like Mike said, I don't want my character to die. I might fight in this competitive battle and physically lose, but that doesn't mean my character dies. So it's all about the storytelling, and in there you get the little satisfying sections where you get some story, you get some plot, you get some combat, you get to sit and eat food with your friends. So that's more of the mentality of the LARP that we're talking about, versus and not to dump. We're not dumping, but versus what American LARP in this bubble at least seems to us, and why we decided to continue on to something else. So it's to me, it's all about consent. It's all about and kind of to say what Mike said, like with wrestling, it's all about like, hey, let's write a cool plot together, and it could go this way, it could go this way. Maybe we'll even leave this chaotic element in the middle, but if that happens, we can look at each other and kind of like go with it. You know what I mean?
React
So
accordingly.
it's
React
kind
and
of like
respond.
the basic direction with the different outcomes that you've negotiated, and then you just live it, and then you just go for it and see what happens. And we had the one moment where the last Bico we went to, where we were hired as guards for new friends of ours, and there was a battle, and we did what we were hired to do, and we protected the person. But after, we all shook hands and smiled, and we're like, that was really great, that was really fun. And like, that's the whole thing. It's like the casting call at the end, like we all whatever the outcome is, we were all okay with whatever would happen, but we were all just excited to share it together and build this story. And like Mike said, when we see him again, we'll want to do it again. So that's what it's about. It's about respecting all the players and doing something together.
I can't wait for that.
I know.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to come.
Yeah, I'm the only one who hasn't been to BICO, for anyone who's wondering. So I have never been to a good LARP, is what I like to say. Even though I've done it 15 years.
Yeah, you have all the experience in theater, and
yeah,
it'll be good. I mean, we've seen Josh do cool things. I unfortunately missed it, but I got to watch it through a YouTube video later. But at RAG one year, they did that Pass of the Crowned Bear tournament where everybody had like personas and their own personal heralds. And Josh straight up was speaking Russian at it. And there was, apparently you were so good at it that there were people asking if you were actually some Russian guy that showed up to do this.
Yeah, they thought you were a foreign LARPer.
And it's like awesome. Yeah. there were so many cool parts of that tournament. I wish I would have actually been there to watch it instead of watching it through a YouTube video.
It was a lot of fun, but I wish that I was also good at fighting, because that was the worst part about it, is I just died every time. But no, that I think that's something that I really always want to tell people, like, who want to LARP and want to role play. Like, it's not that hard, and like, if you and the people you're with really want to. Like, it's a lot of people say that acting is hard, and yeah, I guess it's different for everyone, but if you really want to role play it and get immersed into a world, just like, if you want to, you'll take away only good experiences from it, really.
And I mean, there's plenty of really positive people that geek out to it real hard, obviously, that if all you have to do is express, like, hey, I want to get into this, like, can I be a part of maybe something you're doing? Like, no one's going to be like, well, I guess up to their discretion or their consent, but no one's going to be like, shut up, nerd. You know what I mean? People are generally really positive, and it's like anything. If you come from a boffer LARP where winning is crucial, what do? You go to practice every week. You know, you learn a new move. It takes practice. Learn rap shops. All I ever did was the high cross, and then once I that was it, and then I died a lot.
Bread and butter, baby.
Yeah, but I just went to polearm. But what was I saying? Oh, so you got to practice, and that's what I was saying earlier. Is the American community, or even other English speaking communities, it may seem daunting to pretend to be somebody, especially if it's something you've never done. But you're never going to get more comfortable with it, and you're never going to get better with it unless you do it. And I know it's not all on you. It's definitely who you have the exposure to practice with. I mean, I'm not, my little experiences with roleplay is we play D&D, and that got me a lot more comfortable. And then the little roleplay situations, and I probably just stood there stoically, didn't say anything. But you just got to do it, and don't be afraid of it. It's not a competitive environment. But I definitely encourage everybody to try, because we need more people, and we could have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I would definitely vouch for, if you think you would have trouble role playing with people face to face, or just like naturally reacting as your character to other characters, I so highly recommend either watching somebody play D&D on Twitch. There's so many streams of people who are so awesome, and they'll just stay in character the entire time, and you get a good idea of how easy it is to be comfortable while pretending to be something, because everybody's there for the same thing. But play D&D with your friends and take it seriously. Not so serious that it's not fun, but so serious that when you guys talk, it's your character talking. And that got me so comfortable with role playing. Sometimes you feel like a dork because you're talking in a funny voice, or just because you're saying ridiculous things, but at its core, you're supposed to be somebody. And when people see you doing that, it makes it more real for them. Like all you're doing is improving the game. It's not just about you. You're bringing something to the game for everybody else, and that's really, really cool. Um, we are hitting an hour. I don't know how soon you guys want to wrap this up, but I'm down to start skimming through and take some questions we might have missed. There are a couple I saw that I want to catch up on. I just don't
Oh,
want to interrupt
absolutely.
anybody.
Go right ahead.
So I saw one of our Valraven buddies asked, "What do you think is a good ratio of animators slash players in a standard LARP? What is too little and too much?" By animators, I assume they mean kind of like GM,
What is a
playmaker
standard LARP?
roles. So that's the thing, is that I kind of said at the beginning, we haven't necessarily experienced that yet. Me and Tom have at Beacoline done cool little things where we were hired on by our buddies to either protect somebody or to accompany them to like a ritual where something sketchy was happening and experience that with them. But that was all player made stuff, just personally tailored for
Which we
somebody.
want to do more of.
Yeah, and I love that. But we have yet to experience something that was like run by the GMs of a game, and we played along with it and did something that mattered to the game. Um, we are doing something kind of interesting with the game that we've been developing. I kind of love talking about it because I feel like it's just like this weird secret
Nameless
thing.
game, yeah.
The nameless game, because the name we wanted to use has already been taken, so we haven't come up with another one yet. Uh, the uh, the interesting thing that we're doing is we're going to have people who are faction leaders are sort of a term that I'm going to steal from the Conquest guys again, playmakers, where they are players, but they are also kind of sort of pseudo NPCs that are important to the plot. They're faction leaders, they're nobles, they're leaders, whether it's the leader of a bandit band or a duke from some sort of kingdom that has his own little band of guys. Um, all of those people uh, are kind of part of like a council, and we're all going to know what we're all doing, and we're all going to be having talks about where are we driving plot, what do we want to have available for people to interact with, what are we going to dot throughout the game so that, you know, even if it's like somebody waiting there for somebody to show up and do something about it, it's like that's what we're going to try to provide. And we're all going to have our own little groups of people that we sort of push in those directions while also listening to them and trying to figure out what they want out of the game so that we can come back to our meetings and be like, hey, here's what all my guys are really excited about. What do you guys think about doing something like this? And it's like, cool, let's like organize this so that at the next event, like that's going to be like one of the big things. Here's the cool story. um, we'll plan this scene for Friday nights so that people get an idea of like, oh shit, this is happening, like they're doing that and they're doing this, who can I be about that? And then Saturday night something else happens and things lead to things. And the other thing too is that it can just be a place where some people are just there to drink and hang out, and if a fight happens they're there to get involved. So you might only end up with a group of 5 or 6 people that are actually trying to like seek out the plot stuff, and that
And that's okay.
and that's fine. And even too, in that vein, when people show up and they're like, hey, I have this idea for a group, I see you guys don't have any like representation from, I don't know. Uh, we don't have anybody trying to do, yeah, sure. And it's like, so here's my idea for that. And here's like my application of sorts. Like, what do you guys think about it? And we'll be like, oh, cool, this sounds awesome. We're going to try to work you into the plot because you have a cool idea. And we're going to appoint you to be a playmaker with us. Like, you're going to be involved in our talks and you're going to help us move plots so that all of our players are getting engaged and doing cool stuff. So in my mind, I can't think of exact numbers for it. I think what Biko has, which I don't know if that's Federica or somebody else from Valraven, 25 to 35 people for 4,000 people, I think that's a joke. I know it would probably be very hard to get enough people to like make something for everybody, but and another big part of it probably too is that I don't speak French. None of us speak French, so it's like
Yeah,
it's
we've missed a
probably
lot.
it's probably really hard for us to get engaged anyways. But I mean, even just little things like when we were at Nephilim's camp at their longhouse, and they had that meeting where they were all at the table and stuff, and we were just standing outside. I can't remember if we were just accompanying somebody, or if we were guarding somebody, but we were just standing outside looking cool with our swords. But I just kept looking in that door, being like, I don't know what they're talking about, but I just want to be part of that conversation.
Yeah.
So
Pecco, what's up?
made it.
But that's the thing too. Is like, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but that's the thing too. Is like, if you're somebody,
I'm just waiting for other people to talk.
If you're somebody that wants to show up, and like, this is what we were the last 2 times that we went, is through Oathsworn. If you want to show up and say, I am in a small group, I don't know what's going on. I mean, that's the importance of having some connections, some friends, or even just trying to talk to someone else that might speak your language and just say, I have like 4 people here. How can we help? What should we do? I mean, I feel like that's super realistic of like, you might have been in a city and there's commotion. All you really have to do is pick a side or don't pick a side, and you can kind of join in to fight for what you believe in, or for, you know, the GMs might not know your name. You might not even be an established group, but that doesn't matter. You might be able to earn a little coin or be a mercenary or just be a spectator. I mean,
yeah.
So
I'm big about rewarding people too for like bringing stuff to the game. You know, like after like a scene, or like if they do something cool during a fight, when we get a chance without kind of breaking immersion or anybody, we'd be like, hey, you did a really cool thing earlier, so we wanted to give you like 15 coins. Do what you will with it. Or like when we see people who organized a cool thing outside of any sort of discussion with us, but they've been showing up to our game for a couple of events. It's like, hey, like, we like what you guys are doing here. How would you feel about coming on board with like the people running and trying to figure out some cool plot stuff we can do? Or if you just want to operate completely unattached and doing your own thing forever, like I want our game to be a cool theater for that to happen. Like, I want people to be able to show up and not get involved as anything and still have a good time. But I also want that door to be open for the people that really want to.
Yeah. I mean, we're very fortunate in our friend group. We talked about D&D earlier, but we have a great friend who's our D&D DM, and I think we might subconsciously be pulling from their style, but it's basically like going back to like plot and plot movement. You want to set up a basic, not basic, but you want to set up where the game could go. But you also want to open it up for players to kind of write their story, as long as it's, I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of limit. But I think probably DMs in LARPs are probably like, like, we can't do that. Like, and that's part of the whole consensual, you know, co-writing, which it is co-writing. So it's kind of like building that ratio of the game makers have this portion of the stock of the game, and then the players have this smaller portion. But the players can still affect what happens, or not do anything at all, or go along with the story. But it's that knowing when, that discernment of, you know, we're gonna go with the way the story was going, or man, this person had this great idea, and then it's like a constant possible rewrite, I think.
I don't ever want to be doing NPC theater, as I've heard it referred to in some other
I don't
games.
want the players to feel like it doesn't matter what they do. I don't want it to be like,
just here to watch us.
This is our story, and like, you can watch and swing your sword around, but like, you're just, you know, you're just an admission price to me.
Thanks for buying a ticket. Now watch me do this.
Yeah, like, it's like you're dressed up and you're in the play, but you don't have any speaking parts. You're just
it's not a Ren fair.
Which that's cool too.
Just
again,
asking people to be scenery.
If somebody loves that type of LARP, we're just saying this is why we prefer this. Style.
We just need something.
Hey Tom,
else.
show them a picture of a good LARP. Let's use that feature.
Oh crap.
Yeah. See, one thing.
All right.
Tom's worked. I gotta shout out to Tom. Am I finger pointing the right way?
Yes.
He's worked so hard on this Twitch account and getting this set up,
so you can point at him.
In future episodes, we definitely want to share content.
I mean,
Tom's worked like really hard.
What specific LARP?
I don't know.
Show some of those Czech LARPs that have like all the people around the table.
I just put a picture in the Discord. Look in the Discord.
Oh yeah, I forgot we have that too.
Oh yeah, okay.
I just posted to the stream.
Look at this little fancy transition. I hope it works.
Yeah,
Tom's gonna be our techie guy for this, and it's great that we have him, because you need that.
Yes, that's us.
We're talking about archaic stuff, and now I gotta click buttons. All right, so that's. Are you talking about this photo?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I just Googled it really quick. I hope that's a LARP,
Oh man, I don't know if this is gonna work.
because that'd be sweet, especially
There's
a gun
like
or LARP.
The
it's either a
logistics.
LARP or a reenactment.
Let me see if I can.
Because I don't know, those are probably LARP swords. They look kind of puffy.
Yeah,
But yeah, everybody's nice and cohesive. Oh yeah, that's definitely a LARP because look at the shields. They have like the padding around the edge. That might be one of those Czech
Yeah.
LARPs. But yeah, they are LARPing over there.
check it out. Check it out.
Those exactly. The Czech LARPs are my favorite because they're doing what I was talking about earlier, where like it's a fantasy world, but everything looks completely like historically authentic. Like even though it's not a real thing that happened, they make it look so realistic and everything from patterns to materials to even like very specifically picking weapons so that like culturally like you can tell who's who and who belongs to what. But yeah, those Czech LARPs are baller. I really want to. That's what I kind of want to strive for our game. We are going to mix in a lot more fantasy stuff. Um, we're going to very slow feed it because I want like a low fantasy setting.
Make it feel special.
Yeah,
rare.
but I really like those Czech LARPs. I wish I could remember what any of them were called, but the other one too is that's Zweihander in Poland.
Yeah.
They do the cool thing too, where like when you look at their book, they have like, oh, like here's what this group typically looks like. Here's like 3 different like basic kits, and then it's like attached to a catalog so you can buy stuff. I love stuff
That's
like
so
that. I just love resources, and that's like I was saying before. We're trying really hard to develop like a good resource place for people to if you don't want to be your own thing, or if you don't want to come up with your own unique character, you just want to be able to show up to a game and belong to a group and have purpose. It's like, cool, here's how you can look. um, Here's like the typical weapons they use. Here's like the motivations of the characters typically. Here's an idea of what the land that they're from is like, the climate, the culture, um, the economy, even like it's going to be a lot, but I want it to be a lot. Yeah, Zweihander's a great looking game.
I mean, that's
And they
kind
have
of like their
guns.
little advert.
We should
Like
do a
you-
whole stream about guns and how
Yeah.
bad we want to LARP with guns,
Yeah.
really
which I feel like is it's probably terrifying to people, and it's just extremely foreign to them. But ever since I saw somebody shoot a flintlock pistol and I saw smoke and I heard a bang, I'm like, well, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I cannot wait till we do that.
How do you get a bunch of Americans to come to a LARP? You say there's a gun.
Don't you guys like guns?
All you gotta do is just aim and you win. And I've been kind of, I'm a part of like a LARP firearm group on Facebook, and I've been trying to really follow it. And I know there's a lot of people really developing stuff. I would love it. I mean, like Mike said, I mean, even the technology of medieval firearms, being able to like, look, you might get hit with this depending on the game rules, and it might kill you because it's a gun. But I fire once and I have to reload, and I'm vulnerable, and it has that balance of like, if I miss and I'm like standing there like a goof with an empty gun, like you can just run up and kill me. You know what I mean? So it's just that other element, and I think that would be sweet to fight on a field, and you're just hearing like pops and smoke, and you're just like, oh god, like part of the whole immersion thing of just feeling, having all that stimuli going on. Yeah, I want to spend 30 seconds reloading. But that's sweet. That's the balance. I mean, you could be a sweet person and have multiple flintlocks and fire them and drop them, and who knows. But you don't see. I know that like a lot of Russian LARPs have it.
Blackbeard.
A lot of Russian LARPs have it, and then there's a Polish LARP. I guess I could say a friend of mine. He's developed new technology with that.
It looks so good. It looks so good.
When there's more demand for it and there's more, production and all that, we might see more of it. Who knows? I mean, I think that'd be cool.
To answer another question in the chat that we just got about using technology to enhance the experience and doing augmented reality stuff.
Oh.
I don't know how many people are privy to augmented reality games that get attached to upcoming games and movies that are coming out. I feel like they don't do it as much anymore because people kind of ruined it for everybody. Um, but a couple that I remember are there was one for the first Cloverfield movie, and it was all totally community based and people working together to interact with these things that were presented to us as real, like fake MySpace profiles made for characters that were going to be in the movie. Um, and then an even better one was for The Dark Knight. And I'm very lucky that I live near Chicago because the best part of the game happened in Chicago, where we ended up meeting outside the Sears Tower, and there was people there handing out Gotham City newspapers. And the next thing we know, two police cars that said Gotham PD showed up and kind of chased us down Lower Wacker Drive. And there's dudes in clown suits with guns, and
Wow.
it felt very real to us. But everything building up to that moment was people interacting with weird codes online and weird websites that you had to kind of be a real dorky like super know it all about computer stuff to get into these things and find these little messages in them, and then find out like, oh, it's like at these coordinates, and they go out in the middle of like the desert somewhere and they found a box that somebody from like Warner Brothers left to do it. I love stuff like that, and I would love to fit stuff in to a LARP like that. I don't know if I would use I would like to do stuff that kind of builds up to an event like that, uh, like interacting online with. I don't know if I want to do stuff that's as heavy as like the Beacon resource stuff, because sometimes I look at it and it gives me a headache. But something that just gets people hyped, or gets people interested, or gives people the idea that things are still happening in the game while you're not there, or while there's not an event happening. Um, Even if we simulated sort of like battles or skirmishes uh, that happen behind the scenes, and we could do it either via like dice roll or something, depending on, we could do it like Risk, where it's like if you have a certain amount of units to spare, or if you have this certain amount of resources, you could do it. I'd like to do stuff like that. I get into stuff like that. But I played Humans versus Zombies. I did that for a little bit in high school. It was cool. Um,
But if you think about it,
the
that's early things of guns in LARP.
Yeah, yeah, because that's all we're trying to do is pretty much figure out how to get a good source for flintlock pistols and muskets that shoot Nerf rifle balls. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've sat there modding Busby shotguns to make them shoot way harder and farther, and painting them so they look like real guns, and looking like a real sketchy dude walking around with a double-barreled
Yeah,
shotgun.
somebody just has to commit to having all the elements that it's like
Yeah.
this person's making this, but it's like missing a piece, or this person's doing this, but they're doing different type of ammo. It's just it just needs to come together.
I like the idea of using like lights and special effects stuff a lot. I'm struggling to think of a real cool way to implement like legit using like a tablet or a phone without me feeling too immersive broke. Um,
The
Mm-hmm.
books,
yeah, covering up as a book
I could
would
grab
be
mine.
cool. Oh, sure. The coolest thing would be like having it be like a special book that people are looking for, or it's something that will be used to trigger some kind of event at the game, and then when you finally get the book and you open it, there's like a glowing light coming from it or something that casts on the person's face. It's like that would be one of the coolest things to me. I'd love to do stuff like that with lights and stuff, but Tom did a cool thing with
Well, it's
a
not.
way to hide his
I
phone.
don't get the credit. I saw a lot of people at Beacoline. I don't know about the first year, and I think Wolfgar has a tutorial on YouTube, the Bearded Axe.
Bearded Axe, yeah.
But it's a book, and I you could just shop online, get any old planner. I just got one that has the basic just lines. I think Ulfgar. I think maybe if I don't know if you're still in here, but you glued your pages. I didn't do that. I'm lazy. But all you pretty much do is the thing that you saw in the old gangster movies where they cut out the thing for the gun. All you're really doing is I took an X-Acto knife and just cut over and over and over again, and your phone pops in there, and then you just cut a little slit in the back for the camera, which Speaking of Beacoline, if they're using tablets and stuff, they should just get like big tomes and just go bloop,
Yeah.
and plop the tablet right in there, because then it looks like they're looking at this big like chronicle, like oh. But
Yeah,
It's so sweet.
but yeah, it just pops in there, and then I could do what I'm doing on here. I mean, you can see it, but it's a lot less obtrusive of me going like, "Dude, I'm from America. What's up, bro?" You know what I
yeah,
mean?
like nobody's
it's a lot
nobody's gonna look
easier.
twice at it.
But I mean, they're cheap. It's like $4, $5, and you just need an X-Acto blade, and that's it. I mean,
Yeah, I love that.
just being having creative ways.
The other thing, like the best way to film a LARP or a battlefield is with drones, but like it's so immersive breaking. So like I'm always 50-50 on them.
The sound is what kills me.
Yeah.
I always think there's bugs coming or something.
They have to be good drones.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a really good quiet one and they didn't fly it too low, I probably wouldn't even notice it. Especially if we did like they said about the smoke when they did the Skaven invasion. Every cool movie battle scene, there's like smoke all over the battlefield for some reason. I want to do a lot of like smoke when there's a battle. If there's like a smoky battlefield, people probably won't notice a very high flying drone.
Yeah.
I think as long as it keeps its distance, and if it's a more expensive one that runs pretty quiet, I'm not that worried about it. But I hate when people fly like super loud drones like super close on the battlefield. Drives me nuts.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have all these people dressing up and spending all this money and doing all those things to be immersed, and then you hear something that you definitely recognize as modern technology. I mean, that goes with tablets or whatever. I mean, maybe there was like a few moments at Beacoline specifically where, I mean, people pointed them out to me like, oh, there's a game master person, and I looked, and it was very like, I am holding this tablet, like it was very, I could see it, and that's fine, but I mean, something as dumb as this, it's a simple fix, and I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying as a player. I think I want to say, but I can't speak for every other player that plays, but like you want that, what do you guys call it? Decorum. You want that suspension of disbelief. You want that. For me, it's escape. I want to feel like I'm there. I want to get hyped up. I want to be excited. I mean, it doesn't kill it for me, but I'm just like,
That's another thing is that I think is going to be maybe not a struggle, but kind of like a speed bump, getting a lot of Americans or people from the United States kind of up to speed on stuff like that, like decorum, where it's like, we don't want to see your phone out during the game. I don't want to see you eating a Hershey bar or drinking a Monster. I mean, I guess we've already kind of done the stuff in DAG where it's like, have a drinking vessel, but it's like...
They try, but that's usually for the campgrounds, so we don't get in trouble.
Right. But that's it does a lot, because I mean, walking through the streets at Beacoline, even by myself, like at night, it's like you don't see anybody with like a phone blown in their face. You don't see, when it's dark and everybody just has a really cool silhouette of looking like a medieval person. There's times where I was like really drunk, just walking by myself. That's what I do, is I just disappear and I go be by myself. I would get so emotional just being like, man, like this is something. I just wish I could do something or like interact with something. Like I wish there was a story I could just jump into at any moment there. But there's times where I really get that magic moment where it's just dark and it's real.
We've had those.
And seeing a bunch of people on phones would totally screw that up.
Well, and it we have a mixed crowd in here, but that's what opens up the discussion too, of like at least I keep making the comparisons of American culture LARP versus other places in the world, and I think that's also another importance of trying to start a different type of LARP game in America and to set the standard right away in the game to be like, the game is like this. It's not for you to cross over and say, well, I do this in other LARPs, but it's to start the standard from the beginning, which I feel like American LARPs have never really had, because I almost feel like there's inevitable confusion in not having medieval Europe or anything like that in the history of your country, to where you don't take identity in it. You don't, and it's basically like we are observers of that in America, but we also have a chance, like anybody does, to just basically like, I'm gonna make it whatever I want. Well, the problem with that is I don't know if that many people have set that standard. I could be completely ignorant, but I don't think they have. Not to say that we would be the first, but I think there's importance in setting that standard, keeping that standard, and saying, if you want to play, have respect to what this is. And maybe us starting this game or someone else starting a game or something will get that ball rolling. So we get less American LARPers in Bicoline that are like, why are these guys so serious? Like, I don't, this is dumb. I mean,
Yeah.
I was approached by a couple American LARPers like, can you believe these people here? And I was basically like, I left to get away from you. Like, I left to come here and enjoy what they're doing that we don't have in America. So like,
Yeah.
show that respect, please. So I don't know if I went off on a thing there, but
No, you're good. I was actually gonna say one of my favorite like it had nothing to do with LARP, but one of my favorite things from Beekling was kind of like we ran into a couple other Americans and we kind of started talking about like our philosophies about LARP, and they were kind of like amazed that we weren't like trying to make money or
yeah,
I don't know, like they I think they wanted us to feel dumb, but I don't.
yeah,
um, but yeah, it's like we just want stuff to be magical and cool, and we want to. I want to provide stuff for people that it's something that I want too. So it's kind of like providing it for myself, and it's a little selfish, but out of all my interactions with other people around here and enough of our friends, our circle of friends that want to kind of reach this higher level of immersion and role play is getting so huge that like even now I already know that if we did like some kind of small event, we'd have 30 or 40 people, like, so that's already like a number that's like, oh, it's good enough for me. Like, I'll start with that. So I already know that we're at a point where we can get a pretty decent crowd. And once we start doing it and like taking cool videos of scenes or battles or just cool pictures of like stuff we're doing, whether like we're having court with some kind of lord or whether we're just having a feast or whether some group is doing some kind of religious ceremony, like put that stuff out there so people can see it and be like, damn, that'd be a really cool thing to be around for. Like, I'm in. Like, it's something like that. I definitely want to go to Mythodia with you guys, not just because I love you guys, but because I want to go to Mythodia really bad.
yeah.
It'd be cool too because I talked to those guys that run it, and I was like, so if I don't have any sort of like kit for like being a Scargan or being part of the Crimson Company, and I don't have a lot of money to build up another kit because I'm already sinking a bunch of money into the crap I already have. Um, can I show up in the stuff I already have, and is it cool? Is it chill? If I show up with a group of my guys and we all kind of look like a cool cohesive thing, are we going to be like disrupting anything? And they're like, no, absolutely not. So it would be awesome if just like out of nowhere a group of like 25 Vikings and Slavs showed up and we were all just awesome together because I get a big friggin' kick out of that.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Um, we are getting closer and closer to 90 minutes. I'm down to wrap things up at any point if you guys are. I don't know if there's any last things in the chat you guys want to touch on. Um,
Is there
I'm I,
anyone? Sorry,
Go
is there
ahead.
anyone in chat that asked a question that we missed, and you're like, they didn't get to my question? I don't want to make you
And
repost it, but
we should slog the email out there again, um, so that they can do that too. So you
yeah,
you can send us questions via email, and then next week when we do this again on Sunday, we'll have a list ready to just start riffing off on stuff for at least the first like half hour of the stream.
yeah. And
Um,
truthfully, I mean, use that email for questions. Use that email for guest ideas, possibly in the future. If you're like, oh man, so and so would be great on this, or like whatever, or even like topics, or maybe something that we didn't touch base on in this episode that you'd like to hear us talk about. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, spam, please.
he likes it. We are going to try to do this every week.
I think we
Sunday
can.
night. Yeah, Sunday night seems to be something that's going to work. Because usually, even if I work, I'm home early enough. It might not always be at this time. There might be times where we have to do it kind of late. Um,
Yeah,
but
but we're gonna be posting them right, so they're not just disappearing after it.
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
recording
well,
this, so it should hopefully show up in the videos. It sounds like your mic is still a little quiet, Josh, but it may be irrelevant
Yeah, I don't
because
know
if
what's
we're
going
wrapping
on,
up.
but yeah, send in your questions and definitely um, share this with your friends so that way they can join too the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a good time, it's really only going to get better. I feel like even the more comfortable we get, which I feel like we're already pretty comfortable.
yeah, this
Um,
already went better than I expected.
we can make an episode just about Bicoline. We could make an episode and have a guest about this secret LARP that we're talking about sometime in the future.
We could talk about
Anything.
secret swords,
Oh,
forbidden swords.
I do
I
want
would
to
love to
say
do a whole episode where we just show off our LARP swords because they're so cool.
I do want to go more in depth about that, but um, it's up to the viewers, and if we don't
Yeah.
have time.
Okay. All right, you guys want to try to call it then?
What do you
Yeah.
what do you say, chat? You think you're good? Anybody?
It's crazy because I expected it to be like, oh, like at the start we're gonna have like a big number and then it's gonna just like slowly go away, but it's been like a consistent 15, 16 people the entire time, and that's really awesome.
Yeah, that's really. Thanks for coming out too, everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys all for tuning in. We really appreciate it. This has been something we've wanted to do for a long time, and it's very cool to see a bunch of people that are into it, and I'm hoping it only grows. If you guys are super into it, please share the links that I've been spamming all over Facebook and Instagram on my personal account if you guys have it. Um, get other people into it. Tell people that you like the stream and like, hey, these guys are trying to do something cool. You might be into it. We are going to try to put these on a permanent place like YouTube or something, so people can always kind of go back and reference them again. But yeah, it looks like a lot of people want to hear about the LARP, so we're going to have to talk to Rob. But yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you all.